In 2012, while I was going through a transfer through ACI, which is Apalachicola Institution, I met an inmate named Rocky Beamon. I had no idea who he was. He was in confinement and people were starting to talk. As information started to come back to me on why he was treated like Hannibal Lecter back there, it turned out this man was a serial killer against pedophiles. He was no angel, as he pulled home invasions, murdered people on the streets. However, the brutality that he caused these child molesters, some of the most infamous ones in the state of Florida, would solidify his infamy in the prison system, ultimately taking him to death row, where he died on his own terms by committing suicide. Let's get into it. By no way was Rocky an angel, a saint, and what he did to go to prison is one of the most brutal crimes you can imagine. While in prison, he would talk about his regret when he was on drugs and all the robberies and murders that he was doing. He said, the only way I can make it right is by wiping off as many child molesters off the face of the earth as I can and going to death row and dying for what I've done. It was the only time I've ever heard this man speak, and I was transferred out of there. What happened next would be insane. However, let's take it to the beginning of his heinous, brutal crime that he felt repenting for by killing child molesters was the only way. I will say this, when people get sober in prison and they realize the amount of crime and disgrace they've done, they go after child molesters, whether it's to make themselves feel better or have some type of even karmic lubricant in their life. I don't know. However, I have no sympathy for this man. He can kill 1 million child molesters, but killing an innocent person over dope, whether she was a drug dealer or not, or holding the drugs or was part of the drug ring, does not make it right. So there is no sympathy for what had occurred. On February 6, 2005, Rocky Beamon and his girlfriend, Karen Wilkins, murdered 47-year-old Deborah Lacey. Beaman hit Lacey, tied her hands behind her back, and held her in water until she drowned. They would then take her car and trade it for crack cocaine. The two were arrested after police found them driving Lacey's car. So to make that make sense, basically, in Florida, they got what's called rentals, right? And when people are all getting high together or whatever they're doing, they'll rent out their cars for a little bit, dudes will do their runs, bring it back, and that's how they get dope. So they were all getting high together, and she didn't want to come up off something. Apparently, it was all drug-induced, all 3-4 of them that were in that house. It does not make it right, though. To avoid the death sentence, Beaman pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life without parole. During his sentencing hearing, Lacey's family spoke. "I don't know what to say. Somebody who doesn't have a soul," said Barry Grant, Lacey's nephew. Grant would go on to read a letter written by Lacey's daughter, 16-year-old Sarah Cash, who said, "She won't be there when my kids are born." She continued, "You took that away from me." The young lady at the time said, "God says we should forgive. I'm not there yet. I hate you with every ounce of my soul." As you can see, this dude here, regardless of what he did to make things right, was dealing with some real bad shit. The mother of Beaman's 2 children, a 7-year-old and a 17-month-old, told Lacey's family she was sorry for what he did and reminded them that her family would also suffer every day. As well as Beaman's mother, likewise, she expressed sorrow. Then she told her son she loved him. As she spoke, Beaman's hands began to shake, his knees buckled slightly, and he took a couple of steps backwards. After using a paper towel to wipe his face, he stood straight, folding his hands in front of him. This is what I'm talking about. Dudes become just the most heinous, evil, brave people when they got that dope in them. And then it's like, wait a minute, you mean I pulled a home invasion on a dope house, drowned a lady, and my life is gone, I'm leaving my kids? Yeah, that's the reality. And then they enter the prison system and they're looking to murder, kill any child molester they can find, as they feel it's some type of karmic lubricant. It's a way to make it even in their yin and yang. Judge Ronaldo Ficarado sentenced Beaman to life in prison. Turning to Lacey's family, Ficarado said he wanted to do more, stating, "I wish there was more, or some wise words I could say to help you with your loss." Outside of the courthouse, Charlie Grant, Lacey's sister, said she felt justice was served. So you understand now, we're dealing with a savage that would do some of the most heinous crimes, whether it was a dope house or not, whether it was drugs involved or not. To get his drugs, he went the extra mile to torture them. What would come out later is the whole drowning incident was a way for her to give up where the dope was. But when that didn't work, you see what happened. So no way, shape, or form is he a good dude. His life sentence would get him sentenced to ACI, one of the worst prisons in the state of Florida. An infamous reputation for murder, corruption, violence, gladiator fights, just rapes, and it is a horrible place to do time. I spent a few months in confinement waiting for a transfer when all this occurred. On July 5th, 2012, Beaman stalked his second victim for days before attacking him in the shower. He choked Hunsaker and stabbed him more than 80 times with a homemade shank. He would immediately wrap the shank in a towel and a pair of boxers and flush it down the toilet, before proceeding just to go to chow like nothing happened. In his confession, Beaman had stated that Hunsaker also owed him money. Yet, the truth would come out. Hunsaker had been serving a 6-life term for an attack on a 10-year-old little girl in 2001. He broke into her house while she was sleeping, and he did the worst to her at knife point before fleeing like the little coward he is. After he left, the girl ran to her parents' room and told them what happened. Hunsaker was found only a few blocks away. Orlando police later found more than 1,000 neatly folded children's garments in Hunsaker's home. They also learned that he had served time in prison for molesting a 5-year-old girl in 1992. Should have never been released in the fucking first place. At his sentencing hearing, the judge had called Hunsaker a parent's worst nightmare. Yet as we know, these pieces of shits are everywhere. But what a parent's worst nightmare is that a judge is even letting them back out on the streets once they know they are a nightmare. The comment that Beaman made about owing money would turn out to be that money was put on the child molester's head, and he had owed him that. And they said, who was paying him? He said, my karmic energy. I have to rid this world of child molesters before I go. After his release of control management on January 22nd, 2017, Beaman went after another infamous child molester. This time it was 27-year-old Nicholas Anderson, who was serving a 20-year sentence for child molestation. He bound and strangled Anderson before cutting his neck with a homemade shank. Shortly afterwards, in May 2018, Beaman wrote a letter to the judge, Christopher Patterson, in which he said that killing sex offenders was the best feeling I've had in a long time. He pledged to continue targeting victims if he was not sentenced to death. I'll do my best to eliminate every single one until one of 3 things happen. 1, someone kills me. 2, I run out of people to kill. Or 3, they put me somewhere where I can kill no more. Death row, the letter said. The rumors were circled that Beaman would continue to say, I deserve to die as well. So I will kill as many child molesters as possible until the state kills me. That way I can get rid of the evil on this earth, considering himself. Could you imagine a letter like that being sent to a judge? That's some real cold shit. Especially asking a judge for death row. If you don't send me there, the blood is on your hands. That's as cold-blooded as it gets. Well, he would definitely get his answers, as he would get sentenced to death row for killing 2 inmates in the state penitentiary, both child molesters. He would go on to say this: the best feeling I ever had in my life was killing child molesters, and I prepared to kill hundreds of them. Anytime I would see one, I would try to gut them and strangle them. I was able to tie one up and slice his throat, and it took hours before the corrections officers even noticed. However, I deserve to die as well. If I can kill as many of these evil child molesters, and then my life can be sacrificed for that, at least something I did will be worth something. Straight maniac, but in a weird way, it all makes sense. He would ultimately take his own life in Rayford Union Correctional Institution, the death house, June 10th, 2020. Place is monitored 24/7 to make sure that the worst inmates don't kill themselves and receive the death penalty. It was never released how he killed himself. Murder, mayhem, and drugs led him to prison. He felt the only way to seek redemption was to murder as many child molesters as possible, then himself. What do y'all think? Stay out, stay free. Us.